Hello and welcome to the Digital Digest, your weekly breakfast of insights, tips and tricks and general information that will help anyone trying to move things forward in this digital world of accounting. This show is brought to you by the Digital Disruptors, and we are hoping to push the boundaries in the digital accountancy space. So that's what we're all about here. I'm your host today. It's a little bit of a switcheroo for a change. And on this episode, I'm going to be speaking with Ryan, who's obviously works for Scriptland. Is going to be talking through some of the detail of what we're going to cover in the session. So let's crack on and let's talk about a case study that Ryan's been working on. Give us some deep insights into the problems that he's experienced with a particular client, how he went about resolving those, and what the outcomes were at the end.
Cool. Well, thanks, John. It's very weird being on this side. Hopefully, I won't cause you too many problems. So yeah, like firstly, I guess focuses on our digital transformation team and a specific project that we did with our HR business. So they got introduced to us via a business advisor they were working with. The business advisor wanted to do more with them. They wanted to grow. They were seeking investment to grow, and they were struggling to get the insights out of the system they were on at the time. They were using Harvest HR, good tool. But we're struggling to get, I guess, really deep insights into how the team were performing and enabled them to bill in the correct way. They were using a mixture of retainers and billing in arrears, and just struggling to track all that, even though all their time was being logged in the system. So I guess that was their initial pain point.
Yeah, and I guess for that kind of business, they're often working on, like you say, either retainers or maybe margin of an agreed placement and things. So that can be, I guess, that can be really difficult to track. And was this a business that had lots of killer spreadsheets that were knocking about just to make sure they kept on top of everything?
Indeed, they had a couple of epic spreadsheets, and that was basically what ran their business. So although they were using the tool to capture the data, all the decision making was being made by these spreadsheets. And the critical part when they came to talk to us was saying, we need to replicate this. Basically, we need to track this and make sure it's replicated. Because if we can't, then we can't track our performance over time. So yeah, that was a good introduction.
And I guess by the sounds of it, then what they're looking for is not real time information, because that's never fully up to date, but something closer, so they can make more regular, more strategic decisions, more frequently, rather than sort of, I guess, maybe where they were just doing it off the back of monthly management accounts, which are taking a bit of time to pull together.
Yeah, exactly. So they were getting those Excel sheets probably 3 weeks to 4 weeks in arrears, and they said, we need this pretty much live, as close as you can get to live. So dashboards were a critical requirement of their need. I say dashboards, right? It was more the kind of live reports that key members of the staff could see. Dashboards were something I'd love for the staff members, but it wasn't that request from day one.
So talk us through your approach. I know you've got a very structured way that you approach a lot of these projects, but you kind of touched on a few of the pieces of the systems that they were using and some of the pain points. But talk us through your approach in terms of what's the first thing that you get into in terms of discovery, and what are you looking for in terms of making sure that you nail the outcome for the client.
Yeah. Okay. So when they came across to us, their budget was tight. So we have an initial complimentary discussion, usually lasts up to an hour, where we understand, what they're trying to achieve, what their pain points are, and also, how our services work. And we set out both ways we can operate. We've got like a full advisory service where we map out the processes. We take, all that information we've understood about the business, we go into the market, kind of build on the information we've got with some specific research, and we make a recommendation that maps out what their system would look like and how the systems, their processes will operate, the cost of that compared to where they are now, and what savings they'd achieve. But that can range from about £3,000 to £8,000 to do that piece of work. So it's quite an investment. Mm-hmm. Our abridged version, which we call our systems analysis report, some people call it health check, is basically a 3-hour conversation and then a report that identifies what's working well, what's not, and some things to consider. They took that option up. And so we didn't do our full service, but we assessed where they were, made some recommendations, critical ones saying that what they wanted to achieve, they could not achieve in Harvest. Great system, but just couldn't do what they wanted. So we recommended exploring a system called Scoro, which was more advanced, more expensive, but would at least deliver what they needed. So that was our recommendation at that stage, and we handed it over to them. At that point, we kind of highlight how we can help, by through implementation, etc. But we said, this is the information you need to take it forward. Either engage with us or find someone else that can also help you. Luckily, they came back to us.
That makes sense. And I guess is there a challenge sometimes? In as you say, not every client has a big budget and a budget that will accommodate doing that full exploration piece of work. I guess from my point of view, in my experience, sometimes you feel like there's a bit of a risk of just kind of doing something a little bit more basic and then almost giving the client the answers. With the risk that they might just run away and try and do it themselves. So how do you manage that side of the process so that you're kind of limiting the risk of that getting away from you, but also making sure that because again, in my experience, clients that go off and implement their own software don't often do it particularly well. So you don't want that to come back on you, and then you sort of have to come in and fix the problem after the fact, do you?
Yeah, it's a tough one. There's a lot of caveats, strong caveats when we're doing our systems analysis report. Basically just going that, we can guide you to where you need to get next, but we can't say that this is the best software for you or it will do everything you need. There's been the odd time where we've over-serviced in that space because we're pretty confident we were going to have to do additional work afterwards. So we over-serviced knowing that we kind of recover on that as we went through the process, saving us, I guess, problems, you say, that may come out for the implementation phase. But there's always challenges, right? If you're not going to do the full service, there's always challenges. And we've had clients come back to us before when they've done the abridged report and went, we really wish we'd done the full service because all of that value that's come out the back end, they've taken longer to get there and probably spent more because they just didn't know exactly what they needed to know from day one.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to balance. Realistically, all we can say is this is how we provide it. This is how they contrast. It's really up to you to make an informed decision on how to take it forward.
Yeah, interesting. And so you made this recommendation. Essentially, you've said that Harvest is not going to work for this business. You've recommended Scoro. What's the next steps there for you? How did that play out?
Brilliant. So what we kind of set out was how we could take them on a journey with Scoro. So we can just hand over. Scoro have an implementation team, but if you've ever worked with a software vendor that's working the operational side, they're really good at understanding their system, but not what the business processes are and what they're trying to achieve. So we have a service that sits alongside that and works with the software provider and the client to basically hold the software provider to account. Go, look, this is what they're trying to achieve. You need to prove to them, through this build, this initial testing, etc., and demonstrations, what this looks like. So we had some tailored demonstrations at the start, which we were involved in. We got them to show exactly the specific requirements that the client needed. And then we sat in, I think it was about 10 meetings, maybe 12 meetings they had. We sat in a number of those meetings to basically go, okay, well, this is how it needs to integrate into Xero, which I had at the time. This is what we need to consider from expense management. This is how you need to underlie some of the custom fields to enable the reporting. And admittedly, we do a charge which covers, I think it was 4 meetings. The back end, they asked us to sit in 2 extra ones because they saw the value of what we were doing. So there was an additional charge there that the client could opt in for. We did all that, and then we basically made sure the build was set up. They started working with it, and we said, we need to step away at this point because it's working. You need to come back to us after 2 to 3 months when you're going, okay, what is now missing? What are the gaps like that you wanted to be in place but aren't quite there? So kind of handed over. And at that point, they had Xero, Scoro in place, and I can't remember if they were using. I think they were using Dext still at that point to capture information, and then they came back to us a bit later.
Nice. And what sort of timescales are we talking about here? Because you make your recommendation. What sort of timescale did the business want to pivot around? Was it a year end? Was it a VAT quarter end, for example, or something else? And then how long did that process of from recommendation to kind of getting live? How long did that take?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll probably just touch on the actual recommendation process. That is probably 3 weeks. If we're doing our full service, it's generally 6 weeks to 2 months because there's a lot more work that goes into that. But from when we made our recommendation, it was about a 2-week gap before they had demonstrations. And then I think they had 3 of those because there's very specific things Scoro needed to build out to demonstrate it, mostly around the retainer side. And then, I believe that was kind of October time. And then it was December they kicked in for implementation. Now, because they were already on zero, they didn't need to worry about aligning it with VAT quarters or year end because the finance data wasn't changing. When it's operational, you can be a bit more fluid about live dates. So we were just looking at, okay, when do we need to take data from one system to another? What's a good time for that? What's quiet for them? And they decided that a January live date would be the best time. And so that's essentially what we worked towards. And yeah, we kind of sat along that process. They went live, and then about March time, they came back to us. So probably about 2 months rather than 3 months, they came back to us going, I think we need to refine some parts of this.
Yeah, interesting. And what did that follow up then start to look like? They're live with Scoro. They're getting things rolling into that. Obviously, there's a learning curve for them, which is covered by part of the implementation process and training. But there are always bits to go back for, aren't there? In terms of you can do amazing training in a couple of days when you go live with a product, but nothing ever sticks, or not everything always sticks, because that's the way we work, right? You only retain so much. And so you're going back in sort of 2 or 3 months after the fact, probably picking up some of that. But then what else are you looking to do and help them with? What else did you start to bolt on there?
Yeah, so I probably should touch on first that we have a support service, and that was running kind of live from as soon as they went fully onto Scoro, and they got us to support some of their Zapier integrations as well, because that was something they were looking to use with Scoro. They were connecting that into their CRM, which I believe was Capsule, so information was flowing between the two. But they already had Zapier connections they'd built. They'd done that. They had some skill set in that area, right. But they struggled with it when it fell over. So they asked us to support in that. So we were involved in both areas, and so those normal teething problems we'd kind of already covered in those first 2 months. So as soon as they've got an issue, they call us up or they drop an email, we jump in and support. And that's really critical when you're connecting systems in a modern ERP, because as you experienced, John, the support services love to support the system. As soon as it's another system, it's like, not our problem. So we can dive in and cover that. But they came back, basically they were like, okay, although the system's great, although we can see the information in there, our profit is not matching where we think our performance is, and we can't understand why.
Interesting.
We're expecting from the stats that are going through Scoro to be here, and we're not here. So what's going on? They were struggling to, I guess, get that support from the business advisor at the time. I guess, the business advisor were very good at what they were doing, but I think struggling to adapt to using the new system. So they'd reached out to us as a firm for some business intelligence on that side, and asked us a deep dive into, okay, what's triggering the problem. So we went into it and said, well, what we can see is that you're getting the data in, but staff members aren't putting all their timesheets in. They're putting their chargeable time in and some of their non-chargeable time. So it looks like their metrics really good on a chargeable percentage, but actually, because they're not putting all of their time in, they've got a much lower chargeable percentage, and that's what's causing your problem. You think you're higher because you're looking, hey, we've got really good chargeability, we should have a much better profit. Your profit isn't where it is because your chargeability stats are wrong. So we built some controls into the system that basically reported back to both the staff members via dashboards and the operational managers to go, this is, I guess, how complete their time is, and this is the chargeability on the back of that historically, and also when booking out work in the future so they could make sure chargeability would be good going forward. This is how much of their time has been booked to projects going forward into the next month, so that they're making sure that they are allocating time and filling work up, which means their pipeline's full. So all of that was built out into individual dashboards that had 9 elements, I believe, focusing on specific stats that drove the individuals, us as we're doing our work, focused our mind, but gave visibility to the operations managers to have those challenging conversations if the numbers weren't exactly where they needed to be.
And that's a very human problem, right? That's not a technology problem. That's just people not filling out timesheets or choosing not to do it for whatever reason. Those dashboards, were they built in Scoro, or did you build them outside of Scoro?
No, these were built in Scoro. Now, there are times where, as you experience inside an operational system, you can do certain reporting, but you can't always do everything you need. Luckily, we could slice certain data. There was one specific thing they wanted. We couldn't build in the dashboard. But when we looked at it as a return on investment, build a bespoke dashboard outside, it didn't justify seeing that reporting. They could go in and look at it, it just couldn't get into a dashboard. So everything else was built directly in Scoro, in not exactly the way they wanted it to view, because you've got limitations, but enough in a way that it drove performance, drove change in behaviour, and actually increased their margin because people had the visibility. But as you say, it's not a system issue. But without setting the system up, identifying what those problems are, and coming back to the client afterwards, they could have gone away from this going, this is not working as we wanted. This has been a disaster. But so that follow-up, as we've talked in the digital transformation series that we've done, as part of Digital Digest, that follow-up is critical to ensure success.
Yeah, and so you've fixed a whole bunch of problems here. You've dealt with the human problems of not using the system properly and made sure that that's optimized. Did you do anything else after that? You could think, I don't know, payroll systems, HR systems, expense systems, a whole bunch of other things that probably feed into this. Was that on the radar, or was that all sort of neatly dealt with before?
So they already had a CRM system, which is one of the ones to consider. They had the finance system. They'd already doing expense management to an okay level. We looked at it and went, okay, well, you can change your expense management tool, integrate it into Scoro, because you've got some tools that can do that, such as Ezi Bills. But from the change, the impact on the staff, we decided it wasn't really the best route. So we've essentially stepped back and we reach out to them. We've reached out to them on payment tools since those have come to the fore. But yeah, there's been nothing else that at this point has gained traction. But the critical part is we're always there. Now, you talk about payroll. They have since then been working with our business advisory team, supported by our team in SB Digital. They've kind of transitioned to get that advice, and they've engaged us with payroll, and so we've now got an integrated payroll system. So they're transitioning on to that, which will be Employment Hero over the next month or so. So they've got the ability to then, upgrade to an integrated HR tool as and when they need it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a great example, isn't it, of where an opportunity to do something very specific, like you've done, then extends out into being able to offer other services within the wider practice and things like that. And that's ideal situation, I guess, isn't it? For you guys, in terms of it's not just a project, but it becomes a recurring piece of work for other teams as well.
Yeah, and it's always a delicate balance, right? If we're getting someone that's brought work to us, the first thing we do is go back to that person and go, these are the issues that they're facing. Is this something you can help with? If it's not, and we had a very open conversation, we still, I've still got great contact with that individual. It's really a place of finding the best place for that client. They were interested in our support. We helped them get through that. That it essentially helped the client get to a better place. So we always go back to where that lead has come from, to go, this is what the client's flagged, can you help? If it's not, then we have a realistic conversation of, is it something that we can help on your behalf, basically, or take over to assist if it's something that's beyond your skill set.
Yeah, perfect. And I think that is I think you've said two really key things there, Ryan. It's like, number one is I think accountants and business advisors really need to understand what lane they're in and where their areas of expertise lie, and not try and do all things to all people. But also, it's all about the client outcome, isn't it? The most important thing is, like, you want to have happy clients who've got, like in this instance, better data, more reliable data, stuff that they can make decisions based on, and being comfortable that the system they've got is being used properly by their clients. So I think that's a perfect place for us to kind of wrap up, and we can move on to another episode in the future. But hopefully this episode has provided you with valuable insights that you can take forward. Make sure you check out the show notes for links to the Digital Disruptors and all of our other future episodes and previous episodes are on the YouTube channel, so you can catch those. Make sure you subscribe if you want to catch the future episodes, so they're straight into your notifications. And we make sure we release on a Thursday morning, and we look forward to speaking to you either next week, or it may even be Ryan who's back in the host seat and he's doing it. So we'll see what's going on.